Hey everybody, John Osborne here. Let's look at where we are in some of our FX markets. First, we're going to look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. You can see we've been watching this weekly trend line across the tops here. We've gone up and pushed right up above it. Remember, we bounced off of it a little bit ago and we've come back up again. And right now we're pushing up against this previous pivot of 0.77402 on the daily. We're seeing some neutral activity on the 240 timeline, but looking pretty bullish on the daily and the weekly. So we'll be watching for that to go higher. We can get above that 77402 with some conviction. Look at the Loonie Swissy. You can see we've been coming down to this support line on the weekly at 0.74535, and you can see we're sitting right along there, and we went down and tested it pretty good there and didn't break through further, and we're losing a little bit of momentum here. But I think if we can break down below this previous low of 0.74535, then we'll be able to have a nice run at that. So watch for a break lower and see if we can make that run a little lower. We are going against the direction on the monthly, but perhaps it's because we've got a failed up bullish move right there. Looking at the loonie and the yen, you can see we're similarly coming down and retesting this previous 84.152, and we retested that in the previous session, and that was about the same as this previous pivot back here. You can see it along this line on the daily, and we've been watching us stay within this descending wedge type pattern with this bit of a trend line along the bottom here that we were dancing along, and we came down and actually broke through that 84.182 by a little bit. Now we went down to 152. So let's see if we can get a little more momentum to bring us lower and continue with a nice drop if we can get through there. If we can break through there, that could be a very nice long-term trend that we could get some nice run on. So let's see what happens with that one. In the euro loonie, we're breaking above a previous pivot of about 1.43897. We broke it last week, and then we've been kind of figuring out if we wanted to go higher. And we're losing a little bit of momentum here, but it's interesting that this weekly trend line is getting threatened after getting broken, and we want to see if we can get a little bit higher. If we do make a move up, we could go as high as what we see here on the weekly, but we'll probably stop at this previous resistance or previous pivot here around 1.52787. And the pound dollar, you can see we've gone right back up and went to retest this trend line that we formed with these 2 points here on the daily. So we're staying within the wedge for now, or inside this pennant pattern for now. Let's see what happens. We're losing a little bit of steam here as we came down and close to retesting this previous pivot here on the 240 from the last session. You can see that same pattern in the weekly as well. But we are looking like we're pretty bullish on the weekly and the daily. So let's see if we can push up through there, and if we do, then we'll see a nice move potentially from there up to at least up to test the high of 1.25689. In the Kiwi loonie, you can see we're moving up above this previous support here on the daily. You can see we broke below it, couldn't get much traction to head any further. Now we've gone back up and making a move back more bullish, and we can see this nice long run that we've had with some pretty good movement up as far as being bullish. And what we're doing is we're forming a little bit of a right shoulder here. Now this is a little sloppy for head and shoulders, but you can see it on the weekly here. We've got the left head and right shoulders now formed. You could have said that this was a tiny little right shoulder, but I don't think that really counts. And I want to count this longer term one here. Like I said, it's a little sloppy, but if we were to follow it, we'd be looking at this low here for a breakpoint of 0.92001. So let's see if we can come down with some conviction if it does reverse off of this bottom of this trend line here and see what it does. Now let's look at the dollar Swissy. You can see we're sitting on this previous support. It's pretty much held after being broken. We've gone back up and we're hovering around that line again, but look how bearish we are on our MACD and our momentum. So we're looking like we want to go lower. So we could be watching for a break. We can draw a line on our 240 here. It's not, maybe it's a little premature to draw that line in, but it's something we can start to keep an eye on to see if we get any movement lower. Okay, and we've already broken that line here on the weekly, so we'll see what happens. But again, we're bearish on the weekly and bearish on the daily, so we would expect to see that go lower. And finally, the dollar yen. You can see we're still in this channel here on the daily, and we're looking to break below this 111.348. And if we can do that, then we should see a pretty good run lower. We've got a little ways to go before we get there, but we want to keep an eye on that 111.348. Okay, and that'll do it for today, and I'll talk to you next time.